Good afternoon and welcome to Oasis Community Development Center and Oasis Church International Mental Health Forum on mental health and relationships. I am going to just ask you to give me 1 second as I'd like to go live. We are live on all of our social media platforms. So I like to go live. So if anyone wants to follow me on my Facebook, I am live as well. Thank you so much. And we have a very special presenter on today. Her name is Atensia Earp-Bowen. She is a social worker who is a proud University of South Carolina alumni. She has been in practice for over 16 years, and she presently works at FAU as a full-time instructor in the College of Social Work and Criminal Justice. She has a broad range of experience beginning in South Carolina and spanning to Florida, where she has been a resident since 2012. So I welcome this afternoon none other than Ms. Atensia Earp-Bowen, and she is going to further elaborate on her bio and experience. Welcome.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Ms. Lisa. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. How's everyone today? I hope you're good on this Saturday afternoon. Good to see all my young people out here, ready to work, ready to rock and roll and find out some information that's probably going to be pretty helpful for you and your family and friends. So that introduction was really nice. That is a little bit of roughly, that's a good bit about my life and who I am. I also provide therapy for individuals and families when they are experiencing some life-changing or challenging situations in their lives. So I want to start by saying, let's have a few ground rules. We do ask that you keep your cameras on if you need to for the community service hours. It is also helpful because this is an interactive presentation. So I also ask that you all help out and join the conversation. It's going to be important. It's important also for me to find out some of this information from my young people out here. So that way I know what to do in the future with our young people who are coming on campus. And I know many of you are planning on going to college. So these are some things that will help me in the future and also help you. If we will touch on some touchy subjects, and so if it's anything that's very triggering to you for any reason, please just step away, put in the chat box, and our Oasis team is there to let you know how you can get some assistance immediately, and they'll give you some feedback on what to do next. If you just feel it's too overwhelming, you can just absolutely step away for a moment and come back, okay? All right. So who knows about Kahoot? Who has Kahoot? Anybody? All right, let's see. Can you open it up for me? If you don't, pull up your app. Okay, we have it up. This is I'm going to put in the chat box the number that you need, 04998198. In the chat box is the login number. Is everyone in? if you would be so kind, put in the chat box and let me know yes or no so I can know if we're all set to go. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay, we have one who's not in yet, two that's not in yet, one that's not in yet. Okay, all right, take just about another 60 seconds. Okay. Ready? We're gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first question. Okay, these are open-ended questions, okay? So I want you have about 20 seconds to put your answer in. It could be yes or no. And the first question is, do you know what it means to have a mental health diagnosis? Put your response. Okay, next question. Name at least 3 mental health diagnoses that you're aware of. Name at least 3 of them. It could be any 3. Okay, next. Can you tell if someone has a mental health disorder? Can you tell if someone has a mental health disorder? All right, next, true or false? I have a friend, significant other, a family member who's been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. I actually have a friend or a significant other, family member who's been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Okay, next. Do you feel that therapy or counseling can be helpful? Or is prayer all we need? Okay, next up. Is everyone able to answer?
I believe they're answering in the chat. I see some answers going in the chat.
No.
You
Yeah,
got some on Kahoot? Okay.
okay. True or false? If my friend or family member is sad, depressed, or lonely, I know what to do to help them. Okay, next up, true or false? Anyone who can't control their behavior is weak or just plain mean.
We already passed that question.
You passed it? Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Ruben. Okay, next up. Mine is moving a little bit slower for some reason. Whenever you feel sad, depressed, or lonely, how many people do you have in your circle that you can call on or talk to? Next up, true or false? If you ask someone if they've thought about suicide, it will encourage them to do so. Do you feel that dealing with someone who struggles with their mental health is exhausting? Do you feel that dealing with someone who struggles with their mental health is exhausting to you?
Someone is saying that the Kahoot ended.
And it's done.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about those questions. A lot of responses. Let's see what these answers look like. So how many of you could relate to some of those questions? Were they easy? Were they difficult?
I think some of them were difficult.
You think some of them were difficult? All right, let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Yeah? All right, let's see which ones were difficult. Which is why I'm here. I'm not sure what's going on with my Kahoot. All right. So, do you know what it means to have a mental health diagnosis? So how many people know? I see some pretty easy, easy. Some were harder, easy to difficult. All right, good, thank you. So, first question was, do you know what it means to have a mental health diagnosis? So do you know? Does anyone know what that means? Any idea? Want to give it a shot? I'm going to give you the answer. And I'm going to tell you what it means.
Would it be something that affects the way you think?
Yes, I love that response. Let me see who was that.
Oh, it was me.
Kobe.
Okay. I love that answer. Something that affects the way you think. Absolutely. So a mental health disorder includes anything that affects our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. Simply put, anything that affects, like Obi said, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act with others. It helps determine how we handle stress, how we make decisions, how our relationships are and how they can be effective or ineffective. Mental health doesn't only affect us when we're older adults, but it affects us all throughout our lifestyle, our lifetime, and every stage of life. So it affects how we think, feel, and act. Just put that on the table. It affects how our mental health affects how we think, feel, and act. That's what mental health is, okay? All right, so the next question was name at least 3 mental health diagnoses. Can anyone name 1 or 2 or 3? Put it in the chat box or you can speak out, either one.
Victoria.
Depression, that's a good one. That's one that we all always very much know offhand. Social anxiety disorder, well, that's a great one. Thanks, Devontae. Anybody else? Dementia definitely would be considered one, Kobe. It absolutely is. It absolutely
Schizophrenia.
Is. Schizophrenia, yes. Absolutely. Bipolar disorder, yes. Alzheimer's, definitely. Hey, y'all are good. Y'all know some stuff. I love that. So mental health disorders range from minor mental health disorders, things like anxiety, depression. They still can be serious, but they're not considered to be major disorders, right? Or severe disorders that can cause a lot of trauma, a lot of problems in your lifestyle and the way you work and interact with others. So some of our minor ones include anxiety, could be depression, and many of us get that, right? Have you all ever experienced anxiety at any time? Know what anxiety means? What does anxiety mean? Being anxious about something, maybe you can't focus, you have a big test coming up, you're just really anxious about it. Maybe your heart is beating faster because you just had a situation with your relationship, but broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and you're feeling anxious. Anyone experience that? Anyone? Yeah. Thanks, Mandy. And that's a pretty normal one that we all experience, we all go through, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. The third question was, can you tell if someone has a mental health disorder? So thinking about all those disorders we just spoke about, can you tell if someone has a mental health disorder? Okay, so how sometimes? What's a giveaway?
Well, I feel like people are isolating themselves from like the majority of the group for most of the time, and you notice that they start acting different. It could be like a way to tell that they might have like a health disorder.
It's a little low. I'm trying to turn up my volume. I don't even see who is speaking. So can you repeat that for me?
I said like if you notice that your friend is like maybe isolating themselves from like the majority, or like if they start acting different, like there might be something wrong, and you might want to like check up on them.
Yes. When you notice that someone is acting different, they're not acting their normal selves. And I love that you pointed out if it's a friend who's doing that, that's not the norm. Maybe they're staying in their rooms, they're not coming to hang out with you anymore. You know that there's something going on. You can't say that they have a mental health disorder per se, but you know that something's happening with your friend, right? Victoria also said that they show obvious signs and differences in their behavior. Absolutely. Behaviors change and you are able to recognize that. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to recognize some of these signs with your friends and family. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue. Thanks so much for your answers and your feedback and communication and cooperation. So number 4.
Devante said when it interrupts their day-to-day routine. That's a good one to Atensia.
That's a great one. I didn't see that. Thanks, Lisa. That's a really great one. That is another dead ring or another obvious option here. When you know that someone, normally we go after class or after school, we go hang out and we go to the pizza shop at the corner. I'm thinking of my daughter's school at Piper. We go to the pizza shop after school and now all of a sudden they're not doing that anymore. Perfect example. All right, number 4 was true or false. I have a friend or significant other or family member who's been diagnosed with a mental disorder. And some of you said, I don't see the answers. They disappeared. Oh, many of you said yes. Okay, so you do have a family, a friend, or significant other who's been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and some of you have not. Fifth one, do you feel that therapy or counseling can be helpful, or is prayer all we need? What do you think about that question? How many of you believe in counseling?
Yes, but we need both of them.
I can't see who's speaking. I don't know why. Let me see what I can.
Sharon.
Sorry.
Sharon would.
Okay, if I could change my view, maybe that would help. So we need both of them, right?
Yes.
And why do you think we need both, Sharon?
Because I believe that God has equipped humans with the skills that they need to be able to give us the services that we need to have a healthy mental health. We all have skills and talents that God has given to us because He's everywhere and at all times, but He has made us to be representatives of Him, if that makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. Thank you
So
so much for
we're
that.
the hands and feet in the counseling that He has made here on earth. So yes, we need both of them.
That's great. I thank you so much, Sharon. I hear some people
You're welcome.
on the chat saying, depends on if you even have a religion. And that is true. There are some people who don't have a religion and don't believe in that. So the question is, do you think that counseling is helpful? I see, it's a great answer here. It helps you learn coping skills. It does. And it's as easy as many of us might think that that's so easy to do. We know how to cope. If something happens traumatic in our life, we just know what to do. But sometimes we don't, because when you're in that moment, if you're struggling, if you went through a bad breakup, sometimes you just don't think clearly. And so counseling can be helpful. Both are helpful. Yep. Good. All right, the next question was, if my friend or family member is sad, depressed, or lonely, I know what to do to help them. What would you do? What exactly would you do?
Feel free to come off of chat, off of mute too. You can type in the chat and feel free to come off of mute.
Oh, listening. That is exactly what we have to do. We have to learn how to listen attentively. Listening involves skills such as not talking over one another, being present, not cutting people off when they're speaking. We want to try to comfort them, give them reassurance. These are great responses. Give them advice, and we want to talk about that. There's a difference in advice, right, versus information. And so sometimes advice is great, and sometimes we don't know everything to do for that person. So we want to make sure we have appropriate information.
I love Victoria's response.
Me
And
too.
I use that with at work.
Not listening to respond, but listening to understand. Yes, I do too. I think we all need a little bit of that. Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, that is.
So
Right on
I
time.
love,
Devontae.
not being judgmental. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell you
that's
guys,
true.
the actual answers, there are real life answers. And the answers are listening and being non-judgmental. And so you all really know what to do and how to do it. What does that mean to be non-judgmental? It means that just because someone is doing something differently than you are, or operating or handling a situation different than you are, doesn't mean it's not right, right? And the way we learn to be non-judgmental is by being aware of some of our biases. Biases are what things that we don't like or things that affect us negatively. So when we're aware of that, it'll be on our minds to make sure that we're not trying to be confrontational, that we're listening and not judging the person because we're aware of what we don't like. We know what that means and what that looks like. You all are awesome. I love it. All right. Anyone who can't control their behavior is weak or just plain mean. Have you ever not been able to, exactly, Victoria. Have you ever been able to, oh heaven, oh my daughter's here. Have you ever been able to Have you ever had a situation where your behavior was a little out of control and you think back on it and you said, whoa, why did I do that? Why did I act like that? Why did I interact this way? Anyone felt that way or ever had that experience? Right, many times, right? So just because you can't control your behavior, right, of course, doesn't mean that you're weak or that you're just plain mean. But it goes back to the earlier response from, I don't remember who it was, but learning coping mechanisms. And maybe you have never experienced that situation before. So you don't know how to react to it because you've never went through it. Make sense? All right, next, whenever you feel sad, depressed, or lonely, how many people do you have in your circle that you can call on or talk to? How many do you have? Do you have a good, solid number of people that you can call on for support? What does that number look like? I see some faces like, I don't know. It's usually about 2 or 3. It really usually is. And I think that's a good, strong number. Why do I think that's a good, strong number? Because if you only have one person, think how exhausting that can be on that one person, right? Imagine if you were that only friend to another friend, how tiring that would be to hear their problems every single day. So it's going to affect you as well. Victoria's been that only friend. And I think many of us have. So think about that. I think that having at least 2 or 3 people to bounce your feelings off of is a good, solid number. Delina says 3 to 5. That's right. You have a good circle. I'm not going to burn anybody out. All of y'all, come on, let's go talk about this. I love it. A variety of people. And you want to make sure that that variety are real strong supporters for you. So that's why I'm not too big on just having one, and I'm not too big on having too many either, right? Because then now some of your information, stuff that you, that is confidential, could get to more places than you would want it to go. All right, the next question that was asked is, whenever you feel sad, depressed, or alone, if you ask someone if they thought about suicide, it will encourage them to do so. Do you think that's true? Oh, I have such a smart group here. This is, let me tell you something. I work with adults on a daily basis, and I do trainings for adults, and most people think that if you mention the word kill yourself, that it's going to trigger them to kill themselves. Honestly, most people think that. So I'm so proud of the young people today. They're ready, and I feel confident in what's going to happen for us in the future. That's not going to trigger. It's going to open the door for a conversation, right? Maybe they were thinking about it. Maybe no one ever asked them about that. But you're a friend, you're a brother, you're a sister, you're a cousin, you're an auntie. If you don't ask, you won't know. And a lot of times they sit in silence when they're struggling with something, with depression or some traumatic experiences. All right, and the final question was, do you feel that dealing with someone who struggles with their mental health is exhausting? Is that a tiring situation for you? So if your friend or your sister or your cousin is struggling with any mental health issue or concern, is it tiring for you? Is it exhausting? So not always, sometimes. If they do too much, what do you mean if they do too much? Where's my mouse? Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties on my end here. I lost my mouse.
Usually no.
Okay.
Not always, sometimes. So Victoria said if they do too much, then yeah. And then kind of If they keep relying on you and no one else while also not doing anything to help themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If it's the only thing we talk about, then it's annoying.
Mm-hmm. That's a good, I'm happy to hear those responses, because oftentimes people aren't aware. So how would you have that conversation with your friend, with your family member, with your sister, your brother? How would you have that conversation with them and let them know, you know what, it's annoying right now. I can't talk about anything else with you. What else is happening in your life? And so it's okay that you have those feelings as well. We do want to make sure we're being supportive, but you supportive, but you're entitled to have your viewpoint as well. You have to make sure that you're mentally well, right? So what factors contribute to problems with our mental health? So let's talk a little bit. I'm gonna give you a little bit of information now. Some of the factors, things that contribute to problems with our mental health are either biological, so like it might be genes or just brain imbalances. There might be a family history of mental health issues, or and the third one is maybe life experiences. So traumatic events or abuse or abusive relationships, those can bring about mental health concerns. Those are the three reasons that they can occur. So let's say you were traumatized as a child, you were physically abused, or and then you just held on to that. That can sometimes come to fruition when you get older because you haven't dealt with it, right? So these are just normal things. Our brain is not processing clearly because we have experienced something that's so traumatic. Stigma. Anybody know what stigma means? Any idea? What stigma mean? Nobody knows? What does it mean to stigmatize someone? All right, I'll tell you. So stigma is a negative connotation, negative responses or words. Yes, Victoria, shameful words, and it's definitely a false statement. Here we go. Thinking of normal things as shameful. I love these responses. Generalization is definitely a generalization about someone or an issue, right? So some stigmatizing things about mental health are people who struggle with mental health concerns or mental health issues, stereotypes, absolutely. So some stigmatizing words. What are some stigmatizing words that you've heard about anyone who struggles with mental health? What do they say? Crazy. Yes, Victoria. We hear that often. Emo. I'm not, oh, like for emotional? Oh, that's new to me. See, I love this because I learned from you guys too. I don't even know that one. Emo, psychos. Yes, we hear that often. And so how do you think that would make a person feel to be called these stigmatizing negative names for something that they can't control? Bipolar, nuts. How do you think that would make someone feel? And they can't control that. Okay, so I didn't talk much. It wouldn't make them feel good. They would be upset. So we didn't go into detail. So how many of you have a family member or friend, someone you know who has a mental health diagnosis? I'm sorry, I put my Kahoot up. If you can tell me, if you know someone, if you have a family member or friend, just say yes or no. Yeah. And so when you think about that, and you have these family members or friends who have a mental health diagnosis, you're usually wanting to take up for them when you hear those terms like crazy, those terms like psycho, right? You want to take up for them because you know that that's not who that person is. It's something they're struggling with. That's your friend. That's your family member. And it's a few of you who don't know or don't have a friend who's been diagnosed, and maybe you don't know it, right? So now let's talk about relationships, a definition for relationships. So what do we think relationships what is a relationship? So relationship to me is anyone in my family. It could be a romantic involvement. It can be friends. It can even be co-workers or your classmates. There's still a form of relationships, right? Because you have to be around these people every day for some reason or another. They are a part of your circle. Okay. So how do we know if our relationship is a good relationship? How do you know you have a good friend? One or more persons who have something in common that they share. I love that, Lisa. Give. So when we have, how do you know if your relationship is good? By giving. So heaven says giving. Okay. Right, giving equally. Glad you fixed that. We want to give equally. How do you know that your relationship is good? You both can benefit from it. Right. We're both giving and taking equally from one another. Communication. I was waiting on that. So communication is one great way of knowing that you have a healthy relationship, right? Because we're able to talk, we're able to converse one-on-one. I'm able to tell you my problems and you listen to it, you don't judge me, and you can do the same for me, okay? So what if now you have this communication with your friend or your family member and that communication stops or changes? What do you do about that? What have you done about that? I know you've all experienced it. We'll talk about it. Support, Olivia says, we have to support one another. I want to go back to that big thing about that equal thing, right? So communication and support should be equal. Victoria says they don't manipulate you or make you feel bad. Oh, that manipulation word. I was talking with my daughter this morning and we were talking about manipulation for like too long, almost an hour. And apparently that's a real thing that happens. So that's why it's important for you to be healthy mentally so that you're aware when someone else is trying to manipulate you. Red flag. Try to talk to them about it. Ask how you can help. Talk to them at the right time and be able to listen to them and show them that you care and empathize. Oh, that's a good word. Empathize. What's empathy? Empathy is trying to understand where a person is coming from. It's definitely caring for others. Thanks, Victoria. It's understanding how someone feels. Victoria, you going to be a social worker? Oh, Lisa, putting yourself in their shoes. Exactly. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You do actually.
Devontae said he does.
Yes! So we need guys in the field. Oh my goodness. Put yourself in their shoes, right? So when you put yourself in someone else's shoes, it's not sympathizing. It's not, so sympathy is, oh, I feel sorry for you. I just wish that wasn't happening. Empathy is where I understand that it's happening and I want to understand the emotions that you're going through as you're going through it. Okay? So that's the difference, empathy and sympathy. It's better to have empathy, because sympathy would just cause you to be too sentimental and maybe too emotional, and that might not be what the person needs at that moment. Right? I'm going to show a video that has to do with mental illness. Okay, so give me one moment when I pull it up. I'm coming. Sorry for the delay. My computer is moving very slow this morning.
It's okay. While she's pulling it up, I just want to say I'm so proud of you young people for participating and getting involved and responding to the questions here. You all have really surprised me. And I know Atensia, especially at your ages, of how much you know about mental illnesses, and it shows us that there is a lot of individuals your age that are dealing with mental health conditions, and you are out there and seeing it every day. So that's why we're having this forum to help you, because there are some difficult times that we have with people with mental health conditions. I happen to be one that I am a survivor of a mental health condition, bipolar disorder. And I like the person that said bipolar disorder, because everyone calls everyone bipolar. And it's just a word that we just throw out there like, oh, she just bipolar, you know, but it is actually a mental health condition. And it's not that you're crazy. You ready, Atensia? Okay, you're on mute there.
Sorry, I am. Yes, I'm
Okay.
right now. Can everyone hear it?
Yes, we can hear it.
By show of hands, how many of you know someone with bipolar disorder? Okay, so roughly a third of you. Would it shock you to know that 2.6% of the US adult population has been diagnosed with some form of bipolar disorder? Of those, nearly 20% will complete suicide each year. Keep in mind, that only accounts for those who have been diagnosed. Many have not. That number is equal to roughly one person per row in this theater. Now, don't start looking around trying to figure out who it is in your row. After all, it could be you. And it's not as if we're going to tell you who we are. Yes, I did say we. I am one of the 5.6 million Americans that have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Now is not the time to avoid me, or worse, start feeling sorry for me, because today I am being set free. This is the first time that I have publicly acknowledged my illness. In fact, most of my family, friends, and associates have no idea that I have been struggling with this disease for over a decade. The first time I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder was in my mid-20s. I had been struggling, but having no clue as to why. I had been suffering from brutal insomnia, feeling deeply sad for no apparent reason. Sure, I had problems, but nothing that warranted my recurring desire to commit suicide. After several visits to my doctor to discuss my feelings of hopelessness, lack of sleep, racing thoughts, and such, he suggested that I may have bipolar disorder. He suggested that I be seen by a psychiatrist to confirm this diagnosis. Being afraid of the label and stigma of mental illness, I refused to even consider or accept his diagnosis. I decided to ignore his advice, and I promptly switched doctors. During the years after my initial diagnosis, I was seen by many medical professionals, annual checkups, well-woman visits each year, and random appointments after coming down from manic binges. Not that I knew what manic binges were at that point. None of these professionals ever asked a simple question: have you ever been diagnosed with a mental illness? And I definitely wasn't going to volunteer the information. Instead, I continued on a downward spiral, until I found myself truly struggling to live. So you may ask, what does bipolar disorder look like? Bipolar is the mental equivalent of being on the pirate ship fair ride, swinging back and forth from severe depression that made it impossible to leave my bed for days and made me fantasize about death on a daily basis. Or mania, which had me not sleeping for as many as 5 days at a time, or spending uncontrollably, which led to 2 bankruptcies under the age of 35. One time I actually spent $200 on Post-it notes because everyone needs 40 assorted colors or Post-it notes. Mania also includes being severely irritable for no apparent reason and just becoming enraged at the slightest thing. And then there's the hypersexuality. For the married couples, that may not seem like a bad thing. But let me assure you, hypersexuality is not about sex. It is about the compulsive act the insatiable desire that never goes away. To make it even worse, when it's all over, there is no physical or emotional gratification, only shame. Finally, in 2013, I was exhausted with fighting the battle in my own brain, and I decided to accept my diagnosis. The first thing was to come clean with my primary care physician. I thought I would be given medication and everything would just be wonderful. I was wrong. No one tells you how difficult it is to find the right combination of medications or how challenging it can be to find knowledgeable, empathetic providers, or how the side effects of the drugs are often worse than the disease itself. I guess that's because if they did, no one would ever bother with treatment. This was compounded by the daily struggle to hide my symptoms from those around me. I'm sure many people wondered if I was just flaky or plain rude, depending on the version of me that they encountered. I fluctuated between overcommitting myself when I was manic and failing to meet basic commitments when I was depressed. This resulted in me feeling guilty and overwhelmed. Because of these and other factors, I struggled to get on board with my treatment plan. On several occasions, I failed to take my medications, leading to nearly disastrous consequences. I had gone beyond having suicidal fantasies to making a plan for my exit. I was exhausted from the struggle, and I was tired of being a burden on my daughter. Less than a year ago, a month before my planned date of death, I received the unexpected news that a friend had ended their life. It was devastating. This person was so brilliant and filled with potential. That said, I could understand the feeling of hopelessness that drove them over the edge. I also felt terrible because maybe if I had taken off my mask and revealed my struggle, maybe they could have shared theirs. I wish they had known that I could understand their pain. In the months following their death, I realized that I didn't want the people that I would leave behind to experience the same guilt that I now carry. The question of if my friend's life could have been saved if I had been strong enough to take off my mask will haunt me for the rest of my life. As devastating as it was, That experience saved my life. These days, I'm excited to share. I'm excited to share. I am hopeful for the road ahead. While I am a work in progress, I have made progress. I am taking my medications, all 7 of them, repairing the relationships that I can, and choosing not to allow my diagnosis to define me. Most importantly, I'm planning my life instead of my death. A few moments ago, I asked all of you if you know, how many of you know someone with bipolar disorder? Now that you've heard my story, all of you can say that you do. Moving forward, if you suspect that you may have bipolar disorder, or if you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, have courage, get help. Give those around you the opportunity to support you. And be brave enough to share your story so that others may be empowered to share theirs. Your story may save a life. If you know someone who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, have courage. Get educated. Do not be afraid to ask the hard questions, like why are you buying $200 worth of Post-it notes? Those kind of questions. And most of all, have patience. They are doing the best they can. Your support may save a life. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I like to show that. Okay, I'm just having the worst technology day today. But I like to show that video because you'll be surprised how many around you, people around you, actually have your friends, your family members, and like she started off saying, you don't know, and no one knew in her family. And that's, imagine how much of a struggle that would be for a person to have to keep that so private. Think about the times that you've had just sadness, you know, you've been really sad about something or depressed about something and not wanted to talk to anyone. So tell me if you know some signs or symptoms that someone is actually struggling with a mental health concern. What signs do you know? What signs have you seen? What does that look like to you? Let me give you an example. So a sign might be that they're crying a lot. So tell me what else could be a sign that would make you know that something's wrong. Yes, that overspending. Yes, lack of focus, disconnection from friends and family. And that I love that one. I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna expound upon that just a minute, because it's normal for us teenagers, to sometimes disconnect from the family, right? And because we just want to be in our rooms, or we're doing whatever on the phone, playing our games, and we just don't feel like messing with everybody. That's normal. But there's a difference when now I'm not going to my practice after school anymore. I'm not going to the movies with my friends on the weekends anymore. I'm disconnecting in every aspect. So that's different. I love that you pointed that out, Mandy. Getting rid of valuable stuff in huge amounts, that is a huge sign. And usually that sign, it indicates suicide. So if your friend, your family member is giving stuff away that you know means is really dear to them, it's time to start asking some questions. They're conflicted. Yes, irritability. Oh, Raza. Irritability, yes. Now anything you say, they're snapping, or just being very snappy or aggressive anytime you say anything. Eating less than usual, that's a good one. That's a big one. That could be a big indicator that your friend or family member is suffering. Could be an eating disorder, or maybe not. It could be another disorder. but eating less than usual is a good sign. Something's going on there. Sleeping a lot or too little. Great answer, Olivia. Sleeping a lot or too little. A lot of times, especially in this sort of like bipolar, sometimes you don't sleep long at all, right? It's a lack of sleep there. Oh yeah, and Lisa mentioned it. Yep. So isolation and insomnia. So insomnia is not sleeping well. Isolating, being alone all the time, not coming and being around. Zoning out. You know what that looks like? Zoning out. Like some of you, when you're in class and you just don't feel the class is almost over, and it's like I know she's saying something. I just don't know what it is. Like want. So you're zoning out. Overeating, being irrational. Those are great signs, right? Losing interest in things that they were interested in before. Low motivation. They're not motivated to do things anymore. They might be their energy level is changing. They might be talking rapidly. Speech is just moving very fast, right? Yes, Mandy, sometimes people are over engaged, and I totally get that one, and that is true. They try to cover up their issues and make people think that there isn't an issue, and so now they're over engaged, and people recognize that. So when you see that happening with your friend or your family member, it's important that you point out. Don't, like the video stated, say something, communicate that, point it out. It's important for them. Okay, so those are some things to really look out for. Now, some of the physical signs that we might see are easy. Like any one of us have had it. I don't know if you all have, but I have. I might have had anxiety, and my heart is just palpitating really fast because I'm anxious about taking this exam. When I had to take my license exam to be a licensed clinician, my heart's palpitating, I'm sweating. So those are things that you can see obviously. That's right, you have panic attacks, and is something that's physical. Okay, maybe you might have shortness of breath or rapid breathing, stuff like nausea and vomiting. So those are things that can happen physically. Even with mental health, physical symptoms occur as well. Change in daily patterns, yes, Pamela. Things that you did all the time or that you normally do, you're not doing them anymore. Absolutely. Doing things out of the norm, Delina. Yes. I hope I said it right. So point out that these could be a variety of disorders. It doesn't mean that you can die, and you can't diagnose anybody, right? Why? Why can't you diagnose somebody? Yes, Victoria. You're not professionals or a doctor. So who can diagnose? Who has the capability of diagnosing? What does that professional look like? All right, I'll tell you. So yes, Lisa. And Devante, yes, my social worker in training. So psychiatrists absolutely can diagnose, okay? Doctors, therapists, absolutely, and clinicians, they can diagnose. So if they have a license like I do, I can diagnose an individual. You cannot diagnose anyone. Now, back to like what Lisa had mentioned earlier, we want to call everybody bipolar, but that doesn't mean that's what that is. So you need to leave that up to the professionals. And just because someone is sad doesn't mean it's depression, right? So we want to make sure that the right people are diagnosing your family and your friends. What are some risk factors associated with mental health? You know, there are things that actually can cause you to have a mental breakdown or cause you to just struggle with mental wellness. Some of the risk factors are like stressful events, things that I spoke about earlier. Someone who's been abused in their life. Think about the military. Think about our military people. They experience things that others may not have experienced. That's right. That's called trauma, Austin. Excellent. So traumatic events can definitely cause some mental health concerns. or struggles, right? It can cause PTSD. Certain triggers in your life can cause PTSD, right? It can be also just learned behavior. Maybe you grew up in a household where this is what happens in your household. We scream all the time in the house. And so now all I do is scream when I talk. And that is creating a problem in my life, which is leading to now some mental health concerns for me because other people don't understand that behavior. Substance use or misuse can be a risk factor that there may be some mental health concerns or cause it. Medication sometimes, so if you're taking medication for something, it could potentially trigger some type of imbalance. Illness that's life-threatening. If you have a chronic disease, a chronic illness, that can cause depression. It can cause a lot of different anxiety. It can cause a lot of different things to happen to you. Death in the family, death of a pet. All of these things are life-changing risk factors. So think about how many of you have experienced just any one of those things. And it might seem like it's nothing. And for some people, it's hard to deal with, right? Oh, toxic relationships. Thanks for bringing that up, Lisa. Toxic relationships, we've all experienced that once or twice, and sometimes that can definitely cause us to see things differently or not see things that are right in front of us. All right, I'm gonna read a story. I hope everyone's listening. So this is a scenario, and I want you to tell me what you would do. So now we have to all communicate, all right? So let's listen to this story. All right, so your 17-year-old Lauren is in the top 10 of her class, and she's been accepted into the college of her choice. She's as well as her backup school, so she's been accepted into both. However, lately she hasn't been studying as much as usual, and she's distracted. She's even been skipping her voice lessons, something she's been passionate about since she was 8 years old. Lauren seems surprised that you're concerned, and you're Lauren's friend, okay, in school. Lauren seems surprised that you're concerned and quickly reassures you that everything is fine. After all, her life is going according to plan, right? She says she's just busy. What she says sounds fine, but she just doesn't seem herself to you. Your best friend tells you not to worry, that it's just a stage Lauren is going through. You're not convinced, especially when you learn that Lauren didn't submit her on-campus housing form that she told you was already done. A week later, things don't seem any better for Lauren. She doesn't have any enthusiasm about going to college. She's still not going to her voice lessons, and she seems like she's barely getting any sleep. She's always been a night owl, but lately, you don't think she's even going to bed most nights. She seems exhausted and full of energy at the same time. You notice that she's pretty grumpy, and she's not spending much time with her friends. You come home late one night to find Lauren agitated and pacing. When you try to talk with her, she speaks rapidly and says she doesn't feel right. She says she feels disconnected from herself. It's hard to get her to focus. She seems confused, almost as if she's not really sure where she is. You can't get her to calm down. What do you do with your friend Lauren? Okay, she might be depressed, but what are you going to do? That's a lot to unpack. But you're seeing it right before your eyes. This is your friend. Call 211. Oh my, these youth are amazing. You know 211? That's great. Get a professional help. Okay, so we're talking about calling 211, getting professional help, ask her to speak to a counselor, but how are we going to get her professional help? Lauren said, nothing's wrong with me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going, I'm not doing it. Because I'm fine. So you can ask her to speak to a counselor, right? So remember, we want to have empathy, and we want to be caring and supportive to our friend. So we said, do you think you want to talk to someone else? You know, right. And Lisa, talk to her about getting some help. We want to give her some information, not advice. Advice is not good to give your friend, okay? Because now it's like you're taking their problems into your own hands as if it's yours. So we're going to talk to her, ask her if she wants to go to her talk to her counselor? Do you think you should get some help, Lauren? I'm really feeling uneasy with what's happening with you, right? Ask her to talk to an adult. We might want to do that. She might be okay with that. Ask if she's thought about suicide. I'm okay. I definitely agree with that, Victoria. Remember, we can ask the question. Do you feel like you want to kill yourself? No, I don't feel that way. I just feel sad. Oh, great. Okay, so now we can move on. No, I really do feel like that. Okay, now we need to call 211, 911, right? Talk to her parents. That may or may not work. So you got to think about your real life best friend. Seriously, think about your real life best friend. Would they want you to talk to their parent first? So just think about that, because we're talking about your actual relationship. Lauren is somebody you actually know. Ask them to get support. Reach out to a counselor. Ask her what's wrong. Right. We skipped over that. What happened? Something's going on? Are you okay? Okay. Thanks, Oasis. Right on time. Y'all are paying close attention. So this is something that you can do. Contact 1-800-273-TALK. I ask you to put that into your back pocket, put it in your cell phone. If you have a friend, your family member who is experiencing any types of issues, there are people out here to talk to. Okay. If they want to do it over the phone, I know a lot of us like to now talk on the phone or Zoom or whatever it may be and not be face to face all the time, or text. There's also a text line. Oasis, can you put that in there? You can also give this, yes, they are on point. You can give this text line phone number to your friends or family members. Okay. Now, with all of that, we've done so much. We know what to do if something's happened with our family, with our friends. And now, remember that question in Kahoot? I'm exhausted. I'm tired. It's a lot that I just went through, helping my friends, helping my sister, helping my mom. A lot of us have parents who struggle with mental health concerns, right? So now what do? How are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do to take care of yourself? What do you do? How do you take care of yourself? Definitely setting some boundaries. All right. Right, here we go. You're going to do some hobbies, things that you enjoy. Okay. Be honest and tell them that you need to put yourself first. But you know what, Victoria? You've already done that. Lauren's getting the help she needs. And now, how are you going to take care of you? What are you going to do? What do you like to do in your free time? Okay. Plenty of things you can do. Listen to music, exercise, play sports, do any, like Miriam said, any hobbies that you have. You're going to exercise those. Do something for yourself. Meditation, if that's good for you. But number one, take care of yourself, because helping others can definitely be daunting and put a lot of strain on you. I appreciate all of your time and your contributions. Yes, journaling, walking, meditation, exercising, great ones, reading. If you're like me, I watch TV way too much, and I love watching movies and TV, but that helps me to unwind. So I appreciate all of your time and how communicative and participatory you were today. Tell me, yes, reading scriptures. Tell me if you have any questions for me. Any questions or comments, anything you want to talk about? So you know what to do, right? If your family or friend, your classmate is struggling, we're not going to judge them, right? If you see a classmate who's acting out and acting differently, we're not going to call them names and stigmatize them, right? Because obviously something is occurring. Something's happening, right? So we want to be caring and have concern for others, because it can end in tragedy. Yes, the hotline numbers are ran by professionals. Yes. Great question. So you're going to think twice when you see your friend or your sibling, or a bunch of you said you actually had a family member or a friend who has a mental health diagnosis. And so, but the ones who don't know and don't have people in their lives that they have to deal with on a regular basis, now you know what to do if you see something changing in their life, right? The biggest thing I want you to take from this is don't stigmatize, don't hurt anyone else when you see it happening.
I wanted to say, like, I thought it was interesting how, like, now in our culture, how the diagnosis itself can be the stigma in terms of people calling other people depressed or bipolar.
It is, you know, a few of my colleagues and I have that conversation. It's almost like a Shakespeare, what's in a name? A name says everything, it does everything. And sometimes they say, well, you know what, if we could just change the name of this, that can be helpful. But we can start with educating and showing concern like you're doing, Devontae. That is, we actually have that conversation. I appreciate you bringing that up. Is there treatment for PTSD? Yes, there is. There is treatment for PTSD. It can be medication and therapy, or either or. Can be either or. And it also depends on how severe the PTSD is. So some PTSD, it can range from minor to moderate to severe. And there is treatment for it, yes. The best treatment is actually talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy for PTSD. So yes, Lisa, so if we could put the NAMI website, it has a lot of resources. You can go there to find if you want support groups, if you have friends and family experiencing different things. Let's say you have a friend who is now using drugs, not is smoking weed, or your family member, and you know that they're doing something different because of that. There are different support groups in the area, Al-Anon, Alateen. These groups you can go to help you to cope with that too, because it's hard for you to deal with a friend or family member who's going through some things in their life. Al-Anon, Alateen, those are big groups where you sit and you talk. People are experiencing the same thing that you are. So something like, if you ever heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, similar to that. So again, I thank you. If there's nothing else.
I have to say, this has been amazing. Atensia, thank you so much. You brought so much knowledge and information. Young people, I really believe that you have gleaned on today. So thank you for participating. I think you pretty much answered questions that I even would have asked, at the end. So that is awesome. Does anyone have any questions about any current relationships that you may be in right now, where you're on the fence? Do I let this person go because it seems like they have some type of mental health condition that you want to ask a question about? You don't know how to proceed with this friend or family member. Anyone have any kind of questions right now regarding a relationship that you're in? Because this is mental health and relationships. If you do, you can put it in the chat. I'm going to ask another question. Are you being pursued to be in a relationship that you know that is not good for you? Or are you in a relationship that you know that is not good for you? meaning it's a toxic relationship. It doesn't have to be male and female. Someone says, how do you deal with the breakup? Atensia is asking, how do you deal with the breakup? It could be a friendship relationship. It could be a relationship between the parents. Or siblings. So just to let you know, as I mentioned before, I am someone who have recovered from a mental health condition, bipolar disorder. I do still have to deal with the fact that I have the bipolar disorder. So I have to reach out, to my tools and resources that I have been given. I am the mental health coordinator at Oasis Church International, Oasis Community Development Center. However, again, I still have to, deal with these issues that when they come up, there are certain triggers. It doesn't trigger me the way that, I used to. However, there are some things that may trigger me and I have to pull myself back. Have you experienced that before and you don't know how, to deal with it, or you're currently experiencing? One thing I have to say is that I had to change my diet. I found out that my diet, one reason I had to change it is because I found out that I was gluten intolerant, but that helped me pull out a lot of sweets out of my diet. Sweets and carbs affected me very bad. I get mental fog when I eat sweets and a lot of carbs. So changing my diet was very important. Now, I am working on exercising and getting up early and exercising, because there is something about exercising that helps your mental health. Do you want to speak on that quickly, Atensia, on food and exercising?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I was actually having a conversation with my exercise, health, nutrition guru friend last night. And really, it increases your serotonin. Exercises helps your brain. Exercising and diet, like you mentioned, it's steps though. So everyone can't just do everything at one time. That's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother training. But I believe that if you just start taking the steps, then we can get there, because I struggle with that myself. I do want to mention that relationships, this is mental health and relationships, but you can't understand how to deal with your relationships and your friends and whatever they're going through without knowing, without being aware of the signs, without being aware of the symptoms, without knowing what to do to tell them where to get help. So it's important that you know, and now you have those tools in your back pocket. If you see something's different happening, it's important for you to know how to handle these relationships. And so I feel encouraged that you have the tools now.
Yes, I'm very much encouraged. And if you could put your information into the chat, if someone wants to reach out to Atensia for questions, or she is a licensed clinical social worker, so she is a therapist as well, or can guide you in the right direction. Thank you so much, Atensia. So I'm just going to ask again, any more questions? No one answered her question. How do you deal with the breakup? I'm curious. We have a few more minutes. How do you deal with the breakup? Has anyone?
Sorry, I thought that maybe the answer to that would be to make sure you're not dealing with it alone, as far as communicating with people outside of the relationship, people that can help you. So
it's really good. Very good. Would you go to your friends, or would you go to an adult?
I think it depends on who you're comfortable with. Most people would go to their friends, but I know people who are open with their parents a lot. So
that's really good. Really good. Don't internalize your feelings, is what Victoria said.
Yeah.
That's good. Because if you internalize it, what happens? Pretty much everything that Atensia talked about today, it's going to snowball. And one thing you don't have to be ashamed. When I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I had someone in my life, my mentor in my life, that really walked with me through the different steps. But at first, especially when my body had a reaction to like the different medications that I was on, I walked away for a minute, and I think that's where that kind of denial came in. Immediately, shame wanted to cover me, but I had support. So I walked through it. So never feel ashamed, because even if you have a mental health condition, you're just as normal as someone that has high blood pressure or has diabetes.
So now, does anyone know somebody who has, do you have a friend or family member who has a mental health disorder now? Let me see your hand emoji or yes in the chat, or no. Yeah, now we all do. Thank you so much for even disclosing that, Lisa. That's amazing.
My pleasure. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Miriam said, focus on yourself and people that are important to you. That is very good, Miriam. Thank you so much for that. Excellent. So those of you that are in high school and or need community service hours, I will hopefully you have registered and we have your email address. If you have not registered and we don't have your email address, if you could quickly put it in the chat, because I'd like to get you your certificates no later than tomorrow evening.
Register? Do you mean like
Yes,
register through?
for the Zoom, then we have your
Okay.
information. Yes. Thank you so much. I believe she had to jump off, but we have an administrator in the school system that was on, Sharon Wood, who referred some students, and we also had Avis Chapman here, who is also in the school system, that referred some students. So thank you so much. Oh, there is Sharon is with Alonzo. Okay, thank you so much.
Right. You're welcome. We'll get it back to Alonzo.
Okay.
Quick question, can I ask what schools you all are from? What schools do you go to?
Let's start with Devontae.
Park Vista, Royal Palm Beach.
Palm Beach Lakes, Park Vista, Roy Palm. Delana. Olivia's at Palm Beach Gardens. FAU in high school.
That's my school. Yay, Austin, go out.
Ridge, Dwyer.
Any seniors?
Yep.
Okay, Victoria ready. I should have known she was a senior. I felt it in my bones.
Yes, Alonzo is as well.
Alonzo, all right. Oh,
Okay,
y'all are ready. All right,
Yes.
get those applications in. All right, class of 22.
Yes. Okay, well, we're not going to hold you all any longer. We said it would be from 1 to 2:30. Thank you, Atensia. Atensia also sits on, I didn't mention it, but I am the vice president of the board of directors for NAMI. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, And Atensia also sits on the board of directors for NAMI. NAMI is one of the world's largest grassroots organizations in the world who advocates, provides education, supports, and provide awareness to those with mental illnesses. So there's so many programs out there. Tell your parents. We have the peer-to-peer, family-to-family, Ending Silence for Families. There's just so many programs that is out there to help those and family members and caregivers with mental health conditions. Thank you so much, Pam, for joining in, and Teresa, who works with a lot of youth as well. We will be having a mental health workshop on March 5th. We will be sending out a flyer within the next week. We have been looking at the numbers to figure out if we should have it virtual or if we should have it in person because of the Omicron variant that has raised skyrocket. So the numbers right now, as of a few days ago, was like 24 point something percent. So it's gone down drastically, but not as far down as we want it to be. I do know you go to school. So just from this little small group, what do you think about us having it in person? And if we have it in person, will you attend? If you could just put that in the chat.
I also did mention I have some close family members that struggle with mental health. And so it was really difficult for me. And that's why mental health is really dear and near to my heart.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Atensia. It depends on the location. Okay. More than likely it would be at Suncoast High School. Or possibly Palm Beach Lake. Somebody said, oh, okay, okay. So Miriam, that's okay with you. Victoria. So it looks like I'm getting yeses. Okay, and if we do it in person, we'll make sure that we practice the social distancing and have the sanitizer and everything for everyone. We may even end up doing temperatures on that day, but we'll make sure that you are safe, and we'll make sure that everyone comes safe. Don't come sick, okay? If you're sick, stay home. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you to my pastor, Pastor Cassandra Fullwood of Oasis Church International. And this is sponsored by our Oasis Community Development Center, which is a 501c3 organization who reaches out to the community, provides outreach, mentorship for youth, etc.